Welcome to News9 and you are watching On Point. Today we have two On Points. The first On Point is about why India is justified in resisting US pressure to open up its agriculture sector. The second On Point is on why Mamata Banerjee has said no to SIR. And now, let's take a quick look at the headlines. China welcomes Prime Minister Narendra Modi to the Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit in Tianjin, a Chinese Foreign Minister official said. BJP counters Rahul Gandhi's vote theft allegation, says Congress must respect constitutional body. Tamil Nadu CM M.K. Stalin introduces state's new education policy in response to centre's NEP. Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman withdraws income tax bill in Lok Sabha, new bill to be introduced on August 11th. Uttarakhand CM Pushkar Singh Dhami meets people stranded at Dharali, inspects rescue and relief operations. Home Minister Amit Shah lays foundation stone for Janaki Mandir's redevelopment in Bihar, Sitamarhi. Shiv Sena UBT Chief Uddhav Thackeray insulted, made to sit on last bench during India Bloc meeting convened by Rahul Gandhi, alleged Eknath Shinde. "65 families who lost kin in Air India Ahmedabad plane crash, hire US-based law firm Beasley Allen attorney visits crash site." UN asks Israel to immediately halt plan to control Gaza. And now let us begin with the breaking news. In midst of all the tension and the purchase of Russian crude oil, Prime Minister Narendra Modi has put his weight behind India's all-weather ally and invited President Putin to India. Prime Minister called India-Russia partnership in three words: special, privileged and strategic. He said it's special, privileged and strategic. Prime Minister Narendra Modi's declaration that he will protect the interest of farmers revealed that not opening up agriculture sector for America was a sore point in the Indo-US trade talk, which I'll come to it later. But now I will focus on PM's invitation to the President Putin. And let me read out the Prime Minister's tweet, which is even more important because he emphasizes something which needs to be shared. Had a very good and detailed conversation with my friend President Putin. I thanked him for sharing the latest developments on Ukraine. We also reviewed the progress in our bilateral agenda and reaffirmed our commitment to further deepen the India-Russia special and privileged strategic partnership. I look forward to hosting President Putin in India later this year. And this is something important. This conversation succeeds. His conversation with Brazilian President Lula, who also suffers 50% tariff. And in this context, this conversation becomes very, very important. Because it's not about tariffs anymore. It's about drawing a red line. And on this issue, I'm joined by Ambassador Deepak Vora, former Indian diplomat, Dilip Shenoy, Chairman Bharat Veterinary Association, former Secretary General FICCI, and Devendra Sharma, author and agricultural economist. Thank you, all of you. Let me straight away go to Ambassador Deepak Vora. So if you would have heard the word special, privileged and strategic, so please decode this conversation for our viewers as to why this conversation was released in public, because yesterday it became very evident that Putin is coming to India, Doval is in Moscow, his bite was on record. So this conversation could have been done away with. You have served in the Indian government at various positions. You know diplomacy. Decode it, sir.
Well, thank you very much. I see my colleague from FICCI, former colleague, is also there. He's brilliant. He'll tell us a lot more about this, and always a privilege to be on your channel. Now, the first thing I want to say, sir, that you mentioned these three words. First of all, this is a message addressed to the president and to all Russians. I would just like to say, Dobro pozdravlovat v India, Vladimir Putin, which translates into welcome to India, Vladimir Putin. You have talked about the strategic aspect, you've talked about special privilege. Look, we are looking at trade, we're looking at energy, we're looking at investment, we're looking at defense. So that takes care of the strategy, that takes care of the privilege, that takes care of the special relationship that we have. Has the Russians ever let us down? Have we ever let them down? No, never, never, never. Has the Americans let us down? Far too many for me to remember. Sir, it's my conviction, having served all across the world and in many post-Soviet countries and the United States, that this oil business is all rubbish, that we are buying oil from Russia and we should stop. Let's assume for a moment we stop. Next thing will be stop buying defense from Russia. We stop. Next will be de-recognize Russia, don't have diplomatic relations. All right, concede for the sake of argument, we break diplomat. Next, get out of BRICS. There's no limit to Donald Trump's arrogance and avarice, sir. India can't do this. This fellow grew up, and give me a moment, sir, let me complete what I'm saying. The target is India's agriculture. Donald Trump grew up in the late 60s. When I was growing up, sir, when I was an overgrown teenager, I don't know whether you were too young. Ask your parents, 66, 67, the rains failed. I'm 74 years young, and I remember we were told not to eat on Mondays to conserve grains. Sir, 80 Mondays in 1966, 67, I have slept hungry. The Americans gave us wheat. We imported 9 and 11 million tons. We paid for the ships that brought it. And the then president of the United States, look at the arrogance of these fellows. He would personally approve every shipment, and he would do it after there was a call from India, from Mrs. Gandhi. They had said, the Americans said the Indian leader had come begging for wheat, etc. People talk about living from hand to mouth, sir. We were living from ship to mouth. It's not an experience that I want to get. India exports agricultural products to 200 countries and territories today. That is the target for this joker, McDonald Trump. He wants to seize India's agriculture. He wants to make India again totally dependent on the United States, so India's markets can be seized by the United States. For him, nothing matters except the dollar. That's why he's called Dollar Trump. So, with Vladimir Putin coming here, we are telling the world, not just Donald Trump, that look, these guys are our friends. India values friendship. India wants partnership, not domination. Do you understand that, Mr. McDonald Trump? If you don't, we'll explain it to you.
Comments, Mr. Chinoy, on this breaking news that has come in and the Prime Minister's tweet. I'll read it out again for the benefit of viewers. Had a very good and detailed conversation with my friend President Putin. I thanked him for sharing the latest development in Ukraine. We also reviewed the progress in our bilateral agenda and reaffirmed a commitment to further deepen the India-Russia special and privileged partnership. Special and privileged partnership. I look forward to hosting President Putin in India later this week. Now, this is something which he tweeted. Now, let me, sir, read out to you what was released. He said, while thanking President Putin for his detailed assessment, India reiterated consistent position for the peaceful resolution of the conflict. President Putin briefed Prime Minister Modi on the latest development concerning Ukraine. No meeting between Trump and Putin has taken place, supposed to take place in UAE, but this is part of the read that has been shared. The two leaders also reviewed progress in bilateral agenda, reaffirmed their commitment to further and deepen the special privileged partnership, so on and so forth. To you, sir.
Yeah, so I think Ambassador Vora, in his really great inimitable style, has actually explained the whole thing so beautifully. So very little to add there. But I think there are three things that I think are on top of the mind here. The first, of course, is the whole Russia-Ukraine conflict, right? And right from the beginning, a lot of global leaders and a lot of other people have said that India could play a significant role, and Prime Minister Modi could play a significant role in resolving this whole challenge. And as you know, there have been talks, the last one held in Istanbul between Russia and Ukraine. And hopefully, one of the strategic partnerships and points would be how to bring peace between Ukraine and Russia and to allow that. And that also, interestingly, the points that are stuck are something which will help Donald Trump because, they're saying no NATO expansion, no arming, which Trump is actually for. He's totally doesn't want to contribute to NATO. He has a different view of NATO. He doesn't want to supply arms to Ukraine. So at one point of time, I think our interests are aligned with the US. The second one is perhaps there must have maybe been discussion on the impact of, let's say, not buying Russian oil at this point of time, and what's the strategic thing that we could do, etc., going forward. And also possibly, given what the defense minister had stated earlier today about looking at alternate sources of defense equipment, that could also be one of the strategic discussions that we have. But I think we need to continue to engage with President Putin, because if India can play a role in addressing the Russia-Ukraine issue, it will be a great step forward and possibly position India differently in the global community.
Ambassador Vohra, have we, before I get into the issue of why agriculture is so important to us, I have made detailed graphics to tell our audience that in India, agriculture is about family, property, lineage, vocation, poor people. But in America, it's about pure play business. The average farm size in India is 3 to 4 acres. In America, average farm size is 444 acres. I'll get to it. I'll get to it. And that is why Mr. Shroyer is with me, to actually break it down. But sir, by Prime Minister publicly stating this, has he drawn the red line, sir? Has he drawn the Lakshman Rekha? Gently.
No, it's Lakshman Rekha, Ram Rekha, Raman Rekha, it's every kind of Rekha, sir. There's no question about it. Sir, when we went through that terrible period, trust me, sir, I know what it's like to sleep hungry, sir. 80 Mondays wasn't easy, Mr. Shenoy, to sleep hungry. Ask your parents. And I was 15 or 16 years then. It hurt like hell. We don't want to go through that again. And it's our farmers who have made us the second largest producer of rice and wheat in the world. We can't hurt them, sir. They are our Annadata in every way. And therefore, Prime Minister has made it very clear that whatever the threats might be to his position or whatever, I think he meant something else in terms of the threat, whatever they might do or say, he is not going to compromise on the agriculture sector. 200 countries buy our agricultural products. They buy marine products. They buy our wheat. They buy our rice. They buy even buffalo meat from India is exported. Let's be clear about this. It's a major sector. Look at the employment opportunities. And as you have just said rightly, sir, a piece of land for I'm a 50% a Pathan and 50% a Sikh. My mother was a Sikh. My father was a Pathan. Let me tell you, among the Sikhs, sir, the affection we have for the land, we go around killing each other on the basis of land. Land is so important for us, and for agriculture, therefore, land is required. Oh, no. We're not going to compromise on this at all. India survives because of its agriculture, and agriculture in India flourishes because India has become Bharat, sir. That's all that I can say.
Okay. Now, let us understand why India's actions are more than justified. To begin with, US does not have a trade balance problem in agriculture. The US has had a merchandise trade deficit for many decades. Trump has been citing this as a justification for trade war, but agriculture is one area where he should not be complaining. The US has mostly had a merchandise trade surplus in agricultural trade. Agriculture should not be the deal breaker in trade negotiations with India. That's the fact of the matter. That's number one. The US is demanding market access for its agricultural goods isn't a demand for raising farm incomes. That's the second part. It is a demand to increase the earning of its larger agri-industrial complex. The American agriculture, especially food economy, is less about farmers and more about other different businesses. Data published by USDA shows farm production had a share of only 7.9% in the average food dollar. Food processing alone had a share of 14.4%. And then the average size And then the average size of farm in India is less than 3 acres. And in America, it's 444 acres. Even within US farms, larger ones account for most of the production. Clearly, there is no match between US agribusiness and farmers and the one in India. So Trump's demand to access our agriculture and dairy sector has no rationale. So, Mr. Chinoy, just break it down. Is this the reason why, sir, America wants to break into our agricultural sector because of the pressure from their gene-based agricultural industry, food processing industry, and not farmers?
Yeah, so let's take it at two points, right? So from the president's point of view, I'm just saying their point of view, not necessarily that I agree or not, but he's looking at the overall trade deficit and saying, okay, we can't possibly export more of XYZ products, something which we can export to reduce the deficit of farm products. So let's get there. That's the view that he's taking, not necessarily breaking services, agriculture, and manufactured products into different things and trying to balance the trade there. But the key fact is, and the sticking points are not are very, very select and for very specified reasons. The first one really is GM food, right? And whether it is soya or whether it is other products which are made out of GM foods and GM seeds, I think India does not allow it, and therefore that's something with which we want to. And there it is big business which runs this, the big seed companies that are driving it. They're not necessarily the landholders and the farm holders that showed up in your graphic. There are different set of stakeholders there. The second issue really here is that how do we look at if I take the dairy sector, and I think Ambassador Bora was talking about the PL 480 days when we imported grain. But don't forget, similarly, that same point of time, we were importing milk powder to produce and sell milk in India. A lot of that also came from the US. Now, India is the largest producer of milk in the world in terms of volume. And again, here there are two issues which are there in terms of the milk and the value-added products out of milk, because the feeding system of what the cattle feed in the US is not purely vegetarian. So that's a religious and a kind of a sentiment with a large number of people going beyond the dairy sector. And our dairy cooperative sector is also a small, very strong and resilient portion of the Indian economy and millions of farmers. So that's the second thing. The third thing is it's very politically sensitive in India. We had this whole, when the 3 bills were introduced and, the whole challenge there, it's a politically sensitive thing. It impacts many, even though if there is nothing coming in, if we just agree to it and nothing comes in, the mere fact that we agree to it will create a huge political storm and other things coming in. So it's a very, very thing. Now, what we can say is, okay, you can divide it into 2 phases. There are some products which don't have a political baggage, don't impact many people, may not be grown in large quantities in India. We can look at a phased tariff reduction for those programs. The SPS system, the phytosanitary system in India is another thing which bothers the US. They want us to actually, comply to their requirements. Just to add to Ambassador Bora's,
I understand. I understand where you're coming from. I'm also joined by my deputy editor, business. Shweta, do you think it's only about tariffs? Isn't this about Trump's overinflated ego? Maybe he expected a phone call post Operation Sindoor. Shweta, isn't this?
Karthikeya, lots of speculations.
Isn't this issue tariff plus now?
Yes, absolutely, and you're right, because lots of speculations, lot of analysts trying to understand what made Donald Trump sudden adversary of India, and it couldn't have been the so-called friendship between Prime Minister Modi and President Trump, because that friendship was flourishing for the longest time, and we saw both of them hugging each other multiple occasions, the pictures of which are on our screens. But right now it's Putin, but we've seen that happening with Donald Trump and Prime Minister Modi as well. So what went wrong in the course of last 2 to 3 months for Donald Trump to take such a contrary position of India? And I think it all boils down to what happened post Operation Sindoor. I think India denied him an opportunity to win a Nobel Peace Prize by dismissing his involvement in trying to negotiate peace between India and Pakistan. So that perhaps could have irked him. What also perhaps irked him was right before the US presidential election, Prime Minister Modi did not meet Donald Trump because Prime Minister Modi did not want to be seen partisan. So perhaps all of that culminated into what we are seeing and looking at happening in the past couple of weeks. But I think, going back to agri, I think it's important to note how important agriculture is. Just to give you a figure. Now, agriculture contributes 16% to India's 4 trillion economy, but feeds nearly half of our population. So that's how important it is. And come to think of it, US agriculture is nearly business. All of it is business. The average farmland with an Indian farmer is less than 3 acres. For an American farmer, it's about 400 acres. So look at the land holding pattern. Look at the trade deficit,
sorry, I'm interrupting
which is in all
you.
trade merchandise, but not in agriculture.
Sorry, I'm interrupting you. You stay with me. I'm also joined by Dr. S.K. Malhotra, former Agriculture Commissioner, Ministry of Agriculture and Farmers Welfare. Thank you so much, sir, Mr. Malhotra, for joining me. Dr. Malhotra, thank you so much. Dr. Malhotra, my question is straight and simple. Why is agriculture so important to us? Please decode it. People need to understand. This is not an India of 60s. And the word used by Ambassador Vora was, Kisan hamare annadata hain. So, can you decode it for our viewers? Why do we need to protect our farmers? Why did Prime Minister Modi said कि मैं उनके हितों की पूरी रक्षा करूंगा?
Yeah, you are right. Correct. Because his statement was that we have to safeguard the interest of my farmers. His statement was like this. So why this is important? I would like to mention that agriculture is a very important sector which is giving employment to 46% of our population. And then again, there are many commodities, agriculture commodities, where we are dependent on few other countries. Though we are self-sufficient for food grains production, we are producing we are self-sufficient in production of the food, particularly for